What's good with y'all niggas, man? Welcome back to another reaction video on the channel. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Why nobody lives in these empty 9 states? I always wondered, because it's them, you know what I'm saying, in the Northwest, all them weird ass states. About to find out right now. Follow my Instagram in the description. Follow my other pages as well in the description as well. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get this shit, man.
The United States is enormous. In fact, it's the third largest country by both area and population. And yet, despite being home to 334 million residents, nearly half of the country remains completely uninhabited, with more people living in New York City than the following 9 states combined. Why do so few Americans live in these empty, isolated states, despite many offering stunning scenery? Find out in... And let's hit 5,000 likes for a video on the largest, emptiest regions of the world. Number 9, Maine. Maine is so far north, the people living here might as well be Canadian. I mean, they're pretty much surrounded by our friendly maple syrup-loving cousins. And the landscape is nearly identical too, with mystical pine forests, glacial lakes, rocky coast, and of course, moose. So why is this beautiful state most—
It's moose up in Maine? Shit, I always wonder, these weird states, like New Hampshire, all this shit. I always wonder. I know it's like poverty everywhere, you know? I was wondering what the fuck them hoods would look like. Or like, you know?
Mostly uninhabited with just 1.385 million residents, especially when compared to other East Coast states. It's simple. The climate. This map shows Maine's population density by area. As you can see, nearly every Mainer lives in the south or along the coast, where the farmland is more fertile and the winters are bearably cold. Winter in the rest of Maine is similar to winter in Game of Thrones. Brutal and never ending. As such,
Damn, hold up.
winters are bearably cold. Winter in the rest of Maine is similar to winter in Game of Thrones. Brutal and never ending. As
Damn.
such, not much industry exists in the vast majority of the state, which is 89% untouched forest. And while Portland is a hip and charming city with great restaurants and a decent economy, Maine is also the most rural state with only 38.7% of the population living in urban centers. So, with only 38.7% of the population living.
Oh, she look amazing. Lady tattoos. I'm stereotyping. She's a slut.
Is also the most rural state with only 38.7% of the population living in urban centers. So unless you're a trust fund baby who loves driving their snowmobile on Moosehead Lake for the 1300th time, the state just doesn't offer much for young people who usually leave in their 20s and only think of coming back to retire. The Pine Tree State has the oldest median age at 44.8 years.
Yeah, because ain't shit happening down there again.
With the east covered in farmland stretching farther than the eye can see, and the west full of mountains and glaciers that touch the sky, Montana is a dream come true for any would-be cowboys. It may come as a surprise to hear, then, that the state houses just 1.12 million residents, despite covering 147,000 square miles. Yeah, Montana is larger than Japan, yet houses less than 1/100th its population. Why is this big, beautiful state the third least densely populated, with just 7.5 people per square mile? Well, as I'm sure you'll be shocked to discover, most Americans don't want to be cowboys. Millennials and Gen Z want to live near bustling metropolises with good paying jobs and city amenities. Suffice to say, Montana doesn't offer any of that. The biggest city, Billings, barely has 100,000 residents, and some towns are so remote that the nearest Walmart is a 2 to 3 hour drive away. But you know what Montana does have? Overinflated home prices and horrifically cold and windy weather. The negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit recorded at Rogers Pass was actually the lowest recorded US temperature outside of Alaska, and parts of the state see snow 12 months out of the year. So sure, that summer trip to Glacier sounds splendid, but unless you're looking to do a real-life survival challenge on expert difficulty, year-round living in Montana is too unforgiving for most.
So don't go to Montana, what you saying? I want to say I fucked a Montana hoe. Like, I know some thick country. I know some thick country assholes out there. All the whole country got
Number
thick
7,
motherfuckers.
Rhode Island. The only thing Rhode Island and Montana have in common is their population. Because while Montana is massive, landlocked, and full of mountains and wide open spaces, Rhode Island is tiny, coastal, and flat. In fact, it's by far the smallest state at just 1,034 square miles. So although less than 1.1 million people call the ocean state home, that's mostly just due to it being so darn small that there isn't any room for more residents. Rhode Island is the second most densely populated state with 1,061 people per square mile, and nearly the entire state is urban and part of the Providence metro area. The crowded population is slowly decreasing, however, as the cost of living is now similar to New York, and just about everything the state has going for it, another New England state does better. Number 6, Delaware. Delaware is nearly twice the size of Rhode Island, but at just 1,948 square miles, around the same size as the city of Anchorage, it's still exceptionally small. And while Rhode Island's population is boosted by the mid-sized city of Providence, Delaware has Wilmington with an astonishing 70,000 residents. But why does Delaware have no large
70,000?
metropolises, especially since it houses over 2 million corporations? Well, Wilmington could have been a prime candidate, but Philadelphia, just 30 miles upstream, stopped any notion of that since its location was less prone to storms and closer to the other major cities at the time. Not to mention, it was the birthplace of the country, and the rest of Delaware is out of the way of the I-95 corridor and most historical trading routes, so its largely beach tourism based economy never required any large cities. Plus, the loophole in Delaware that allows companies to pay no state income tax makes sure those companies only conduct business in other states, meaning they don't actually create jobs in Delaware. But hey, retirees don't need jobs and love beaches, so they're moving in droves. The population of 1.02 million actually grew by 1.4% over the past year. Number 5. South Dakota. South Dakota, home to Wall Drug, one of America's most famous cultural landmarks. Wait, Wall Drug? What? No, I meant Mount Rushmore. Sorry, after passing literally 200 billboards talking about the place, Wall Drug is most certainly not worth the hype, but impossible to forget. Damn marketing schemes. The fact that Wall Drug is the most exciting thing for hundreds of miles, however, says a lot about South Dakota. It's vast, far from everything, and virtually empty. Not to mention, really cold. And those are the exact reasons why it's the 5th smallest state by both population and population density, with only 909,000 residents. To put that into perspective, South Dakota's surface area is 17% larger than Florida's, yet it has fewer residents than the city of Jacksonville. Historically, most of the Great Plains states had no need for major city centers as their populations were mostly rural and economies mainly agricultural and mining based. But driving through the fields of South Dakota feels so much lonelier than in Nebraska or Kansas. There's just less
Hella tornadoes and
everything.
shit be over there.
Houses, farms, truck stops, and semblances of civilization. Number 4. North Dakota. Think of every problem plaguing South Dakota. Now multiply them by 10, add some oil, and boom! You've got North Dakota, home to the darkest, coldest winters in the lower 48. In addition to hot and humid summers and terrible flash flooding during the spring, it's no wonder less than 780,000 residents live in this lonely state, especially since South Dakota is prettier with better weather and tax laws and a more diversified economy. North Dakota is also incredibly isolated from major urban centers and thus supplies and services. Historically, settlers who traveled west didn't stop until they reached the coast, where the land was more arable, resources more rich, and the climate less harsh. So North Dakota never had large enough permanent population numbers or industry to warrant big cities. And even though there was plenty of cheap farmland, many farmers who could have settled in North Dakota in the late 18 and early 1900s instead chose to settle further north in the Canadian prairies. This is due to the Aspen Parkland Belt, a unique ecosystem in the plains which has an abundance of rain, trees, and fertile soil. Heck, just the city of Winnipeg, 70 miles north of North Dakota has a population greater than the entire state.
Wait, what?
Miles north, rain, trees, and fertile soil. Heck, just the city of Winnipeg